Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman and thanks for sharing part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, low-wage workers are making up an increasing portion of America's workforce, and in Chicago, a disproportionate share of low-wage workers are black. We talk about what's behind that pay gap. For many, the split R. Kelly verdict is a long-awaited but bittersweet moment. A look at the impact the verdict could have on survivors of sexual assault. We meet the founders of local tech startups who have 100,000 reasons to celebrate thanks to Google. Chicago lost a jazz great this week. We take a look back at the pioneering work and lasting legacy of Ramsey Lewis.
I wanted it to look non-traditional. I didn't want the lines to be clean.
And a new exhibit explores the impact art can have on mental health. First off tonight, September 21st marks Black Women's Equal Pay Day. That's the day this year that black women would have had to work until this year to be paid what men were paid last year. In 2022, that day comes more than a month later than it did in 2021 as that gap increased. Part of that gap can be attributed to the overrepresentation of black workers in low-wage categories. According to an analysis by the Shriver Center on Poverty Law, black women make up 6% of employed workers, but 32% of home health aides, where they earn around an average of $23,000 a year. Black men also make up 6% of employed workers, but 15% of laborers and freight, stock, and material movers, and earn an average of around $27,000 a year. This month, the Shriver Center released a report based on interviews with low-wage workers across the state. It found people like home health aides, rideshare workers, and warehouse workers struggle with not just low wages, but a lack of benefits, insufficient safety protections, and job security. Joining us now are Audra Wilson, President and CEO at the Shriver Center on Poverty Law, and Sharita Ellens, President and CEO of Women Employed. Thanks to you both for joining us. Audra Wilson, starting with you, please. What are some of the reasons for the overrepresentation of black workers in those low-wage jobs?
Thank you, Brandis. So first and foremost at the Shriver Center, we always talk about the fact that economic justice is a racial justice issue. Although workers of color have historically been marginalized into low-wage, low-skill jobs, the growth of the gig industry, which is referring to independent contractors or freelancers that are doing short-term or temporary work, has actually worsened this trend. And this growth in gig work has led to a rampant misclassification of employees, many of whom would otherwise be entitled to significant benefits and protections, as independent contractors. And those are individuals who are entitled to almost no protections. So this is a very serious issue, and we see an overrepresentation. For example, 40% of the Chicago metropolitan area is Black and Latinx, but yet 85% of the area's blue-collar temp work assignments go to Black and Latinx. So racial justice is forefront when we're talking about economic justice, and that's what was the focus of the report that you mentioned.
Sharita Ellens, what job categories are black women most underrepresented in, and are there industries that have a wider pay gap than others?
So typically what you'll find are black women are segregated, because we use those term occupational segregation, into roles where they're low wages, and often in roles where they're earning a sub-minimum tip wage. And so that's going to be the direct care services that definitely that Audra spoke about, but service-oriented jobs such as food services, other healthcare support jobs such as CNAs, nursing assistants, caregiving roles, They're also in childcare, but not in teacher roles and in more educated roles, but in teacher assistant roles where the pay gap is pretty low, and other in retail and other supportive services. And you know what's unique is that even while they are in roles where you require a degree, even in those roles, they are still underpaid. So it's an issue around low wage work, but it's an issue overall for Black women as a whole.
Audra, what, if anything, would you say is the relationship between this current labor market, right? We've got the Great Resignation and a labor market where employers say they're struggling to find workers. What's the relationship between that market and the reliance on lower wage gig workers?
Well, for many employers, it's more expedient, quite frankly, to be able to rely upon gig workers, to not have to pay benefits, knowing that especially the population that we're talking about, there's more flexibility, obviously, in gig work, which is why many people pursue that. And so employers have a benefit because they feel like they're paying less money to those. They don't have to pay benefits. They don't have to pay certain kinds of wages. But obviously, this is why we are advocating for these sorts of protections, because we recognize as this industry is proliferating, that ultimately it's going to do a lot of even more damage to this population of workers. And interestingly, for employers to try to avoid paying benefits is extraordinarily short-sighted, because what ends up happening is you have high turnover. When you don't offer benefits, you have people who are not able to avail themselves of sick leave, which was very important during the pandemic. It's really a very short-sighted move for employers to not be thinking of making investments in their workers. But at least on the front end, it would seem to be more cost savings for them.
Sharita Allens, recently efforts to unionize some sectors of employment have bloomed, really. Can that help with closing the pay gap for Black women?
Absolutely. We know that workers that are part of a union are paid more. We know that women who have the benefit of being represented by a union see even a larger difference than most. So in Illinois, union membership increases hourly earnings by 14.7%. And for Black women that are a part of a union, they're making 23% more than Black women who are not in a union. So this is one of those things that we know that we need to continue to protect and continue to fight for the right for workers to unionize. And we know that there is also a push for those protections to be stripped away. And a lot of that is because, right, you have someone there that's helping to negotiate your salary on your behalf through collective bargaining. You have a place to go to when you have a formal grievance, where you are protected by union representation, and that just doesn't exist most of the time outside of union.
Audra, the city recently announced that its guaranteed income pilot is now fully enrolled. We know that Cook County is taking large steps towards launching its program, which will be even bigger, considered possibly the biggest in the nation. And with regard to the low-wage workers that you all surveyed for your report, how much could continuing a guaranteed income program help?
Very, very much so. And I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that with the dual pilots, this makes both Chicago and Cook County, we are the second most populous county and the third largest city in the country that are launching pilots simultaneously. So the country is actually going to be watching to see, the impact of this program, and we know that it's going to have extraordinary benefits. In the Chicago pilot alone, there is, I don't want to say an overrepresentation of women, but it's over 60%, actually nearly 70%, because many of them are heads of household. So you're seeing the trend and the impact on Black women specifically. But we know that collectively these pilots are going to be able to help many people. I should say, though, that I've spoken to others who think, well, is this enough money, or what more can we do? And I always remind them two things. Number one, obviously, any amount of money that we're able to give in terms of a subsidy that people are going to be able to use in the way that best suits their families is a very positive thing. But secondly, it does not preclude the conversation we must continue to have about paying people what they are worth. So we still need to be thinking about paying livable wages. We still need to be thinking about making sure people have benefits.
Sounds like you're advocating for a both and rather than an either or. That's where we'll have to leave it. Ardra Wilson and Sharita Ellens, thanks to you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Survivors of sexual assault and organizations who work with them are reacting to this week's R. Kelly verdict. A federal jury found the singer guilty on 6 counts of producing child pornography and enticing girls for sex. However, accusations against Kelly were first reported back in the year 2000. We spoke with members of the Chicago Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation and A Long Walk Home, a group that aims to end violence against girls and women. I asked them for their reactions to the verdict and what impact they think it'll have on survivors of sexual assault.
It's been a long, long time coming. Specifically, I always call this case like one of the most important cases that we have around Black women and girls. And the fact that it has taken this long for some type of justice says a lot about how we think in our society about Black girls as victims. And this reckoning that has happened, having this case, particularly this federal case happening in Chicago, where the sites of the trauma has happened, where so much of the bystanders and the conspiracies have happened, and where this original tape was produced, I think that it was really important what this case produced because it allowed some type of justice for the bravery of some of those survivors that came forward, right? And allowing maybe a healing to happen to the city of Chicago.
I just have to echo that it is absolutely bittersweet. Black women and girls are so often disbelieved. We are the last to be listened to. We do not often get accountability. And you see both of those things unfolding here. You see women finally being listened to and finally being believed, but you also see a lack of accountability in terms of the counts where there were not guilties or the defendants where there were not guilties. Sadly, I am not surprised by that.
Again, Kelly was found guilty on 6 counts of producing child pornography and enticing girls for sex. He was acquitted on 7 other counts. To watch more of this conversation and hear from the journalist whose reporting first triggered R. Kelly's 2008 child pornography trial, you can visit our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also catch up on our reporting on Kelly's trial and the verdict while you're there. We're back with more right after this. Two local Black-led startups received some welcome news this week. The leaders of Event Noir and Bowie Pricing were awarded $100,000 each from Google for the startup's Black Founders Fund. The money will help Bowie, see what we did there, promising Black tech ventures which historically have had difficulty accessing capital. According to a report by Crunchbase, in 2020, U.S. companies raised nearly $150 billion in venture capital, but Black startup founders received less than 1% of that total. Joining us now are Candace Spiker, co-founder of Bowie Pricing, a revenue management tool for the vacation rental industry, and Joshua Mercer, Chief Marketing Officer of the events management platform, Event Noir. Welcome, both of you, and congratulations on your recent award. Joshua Mercer, let's start with you, please. Your company, Event Noir, you're an events management platform. There are a few others out there, as we know, but what makes yours unique?
Well, we are the event ticketing platform for Black culture. I think what makes us unique from an event organizer perspective, one of the things that's really cool about us is that we allow the event organizer to take a portion of the ticketing fee and use that as commission to help fund their events. So that incremental revenue is extremely important, especially for small businesses or nonprofits, or if you're doing a fundraiser. You know, if you do an event, let's say if it's $20 a ticket, that extra $2 and change, we give a portion of that back to the event organizer. For users, you know, it's a really easy way to find Black events that are in your area, no matter what part of the world you're in, whether you're in Nigeria, whether you're in Chicago, California, wherever you go, you can easily tap into events that are, you know, catered towards people just like you.
Candace Spiker, your company, Bowie Pricing, you help vacation rental owners figure out their pricing. What's the niche that you're hoping to fulfill?
Honestly, we want to become the Google Flights for the vacation rental industry. Our tech prices and reports on vacation rentals automatically, but we also know where all vacation rentals are priced. So our hope is to become the travel resource for like users and travelers alike so that they can have this information. This information doesn't exist. And for our early users who are people of color like me, it's really important for getting loans, for understanding their environment. And we're just trying to like build economic mobility.
Candace, I understand you've also gotten some really good news recently. Are you able to share?
Yes. Yeah, I just won TechRise Chicago for their cybersecurity AI competition just this morning. So still feeling the excitement from that news.
I'm sure you are. Congrats. Joshua Mercer, what is the grant that you all received from the Google, the fund? How's that going to help you move your business forward?
It's going to be tremendous for us. You know, if you're not in tech and heavily invested in tech, you know, it's really hard for your company to survive. So it's really going to allow us to double down on the engineering that's required for us to stay relevant. You know, right now we have over 400,000 users on our platform. We have over 1,500 event planners. So we can't afford at any moment for our website to go down. You know, we have a huge event coming up next week in Washington, D.C. during Howard's homecoming. Already over 20,000 tickets sold. So when you're having that level of responsibility, you know, having good engineers is extremely important, but it also is going to allow us to do more marketing and more branding that's needed to spread the word about our platform and what we're seeking to accomplish.
Candace, what about you? How will this grant help you take your business to the next level?
It's honestly, it's been really hard to raise money. And all of our competitors are venture backed. And this company is run by myself and my husband. So this money is really going to continue our mission of like building technology that's really helpful for people and their users. We're using this to not only like build more connections and to access more users, but we're also using it to continue teaching in revenue management groups. We provide content and we're trying to help make more people experts in this industry so that they can be successful.
Joshua, what are some of the difficulties that you might have encountered while trying to get investment funding?
Wow, I mean, every day is a challenge. You know, whether it's it's digging into the numbers. You know, it's you go back and you'll present to someone, and they'll like your idea, but then they'll say, well, what about this, or what is it that. Because our idea isn't really like a novel idea. I mean, you have other ticketing platforms that are out there. So sometimes it's hard for someone that doesn't have the same background as you to identify the pain point. But we've been doing this for 20 years, just event planning. So we, our CEO, Jeff Osuji, and our other founder, Femi Masha, we have extensive knowledge of the event planning industry. So sometimes expressing what the problem is and the solution, it can be difficult, but thankfully, we've been able to do that over these last 3 years, and we just written it out, and we've been able to get blessed with $100K.
Yeah, congrats. And Candace, same question to you. You mentioned, it's difficult to raise that capital. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced?
It's been a lot of like, where's your traction? Where are your numbers? Who's your network? We get a lot of no's before we get the yes. And that's why these institutions, these accelerators have been incredibly crucial for Bowie, because we, like Josh has said, we have a fighting chance against people who are like always getting funded easily. We had to build technology before we even got to a place for people to invest. And so now we're just paying ourselves back and continuing to build our mission. But these funds have been incredibly helpful, just like Techstars Chicago has been incredibly helpful for us. And I'm so grateful for the community.
It sounds like you're both off to a really good start. We've got about 30 seconds left. Joshua, why is it important to have targeted investment for Black-led startups?
It's extremely critical because a lot of times, people that look like us, we're always on the consumer side and never on the decision side. So to have people that look like you, it's going to be more intention and more thought and less manipulation when it comes to technology. I'm a father of two, and I'm always telling my kids to get off of YouTube, get off of that, get off of this. But, I think, when you have people that look like you won't be underrepresented in the boardroom. And that's what's important to me.
All right. That's a good place to leave it. Best of luck to you both. Our thanks to Joshua Mercer and Candace Spiker.
Thank you so much.
Up next, remembering jazz legend Ramsey Lewis. Chicago is mourning the loss of jazz legend Ramsey Lewis this week. The award-winning pianist who grew up in Cabrini Green and began playing the piano at age 4 died at his Chicago home on Monday at age 87. Musicologist and producer Mark Ruffin remembers his mentor and friend as a pioneer and innovator and as a man of unsurpassed character and warmth.
Ramsey Lewis was discovered playing in a club by Daddy O'Daly, who was a legendary DJ in Chicago. He was put on Chess, first Argo record, then Cadet Records, of division of Chess Records. There's so much history with Chess. He is a huge part of that history. He had his hit with the In Crowd on his 17th album. So he had already been recording and part of the scene. And then I think as music divided and split up in the 60s, he was part of the movement that really spawned Earth, Wind, and Fire. Maurice White was in his band. That was a whole different direction. He went towards that direction, taking R&B and contemporary jazz at the time and making his own. And I think he did that for Chicago. He loved mixing all the music he knew into a style that was Ramsey Lewis. If there was a legacy that I would like people to remember, is that he was generous of soul, generous of spirit, and boy, did he play that piano.
Musicologist and producer Mark Ruffin remembering jazz great Ramsey Lewis, who passed away last week at his Chicago home. He was 87. You can watch more of Ramsey Lewis's Chicago Tonight performances on our website. An Englewood native is showing the impact art therapy can have on one's mental health in a new exhibition titled Therapeutic Reasoning. Arts correspondent Angel Ito takes us to a very serious gallery in River West for a look and to note that some of this upcoming artwork is graphic.
When you think of the phrase, a lot can change in a year, it's one that could best be used to describe artist David Ellis and the role expression has played in his life.
So I had really aggressive suicidal ideation, and one of the first things that was listed on the safety list for me was to paint when I felt like really aggressive ideation come on. And so that's what I started doing. I just went back to what I remembered made me happy when I was younger. And it was just drawing.
When it came time to pay rent, Ellis, or E-Works, decided to sell paintings on his front lawn. It grew so successful, the self-taught artist decided to do it monthly.
And I had my first 2 sales, and as soon as people stop and are buying art and other people see people buying art, it just pulls more people's eyes in your directions.
Whether it be for himself or commissions, E-Works says he needs to paint every day.
People kind of ignore the need for art and ignore the place it holds in society that gives everything meaning. Art is needed.
He shows that need for self-expression in a new exhibit at a very serious gallery in River West, where he documents societal moments in time with acrylic on canvas, each piece taking no more than a day.
So I'll take screenshots of celebrity moments, of pop culture moments, of things that are meaningful to me. Nothing is super intentional in terms of like what I create. It's always been for therapeutic reasons. Like I create to feel good, to feel normal, to balance myself, to center myself. It's never been about just solely the art. It's been about my healing.
While art and self-expression have helped E-Works improve his mental state, it's a practice he says he'll always have to work on.
I feel like it's important to know that it's not the end-all solution. It's not this thing that's gonna make you like just healthy for the rest of your life. It's a thing that you always know you can come back to center yourself.
The characters E-Works has created live in what he's called the day room and hopes his art dismantles racism, homophobia, and elitism, among other things.
Art has always been very intergenerational. I can engage with young people people my age, older black folks. Oh, you don't like the picture of the penis? Why? Let's talk about it. A lot of it kind of speaks to my sexuality. I identify as fluid. So it's a talking point, and it creates like a bigger space for healing and understanding intergenerationally.
While the art eWorks creates is for his personal healing, he hopes it inspires Black and brown children specifically.
The investment has to start at some point. And there's no way around not spending the money and not spending the time and not practicing. Take creative agency over what it is you love to do, and like, don't let anybody else pilot your life decisions.
For Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Angel Ito.
You can see Therapeutic Reasoning at A Very Serious Gallery in River West through October 23rd. And that's our show for this weekend. Join me and Paris Schutz next week at 7 on Chicago Tonight. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is proud of its partners named Illinois leading lawyers by the Law Bulletin Publishing Company of Chicago.